So in the previous sample, we see that when the scale is very large, sometimes the annotations overlapping each other, whereas in fact, the 3D element, they're actually side by side. So because the scale and the symbol size, even though the 3D element is showing correct, in the floor plan we see that they're overlapping each other. And in this example, it looks like there's one element, but in fact, you see that there's two family on top of each other. So in order for the floor plan to look correct, we need a way to actually move the generic annotation around without affecting the 3D element's position. And this is how we're going to achieve it. We're going to go Edit Family. And edit this 2D annotation. Turn on the dimension and reference lines. So we want to move this annotation around. We'll create a group and assign some reference lines. We give it a starting position of 5 inch. And 5 inch on the other side as well. So this will be used as a reference line. We're gonna lock this dimension. And once we lock that dimension, we can dimension our annotation symbol from the reference line. So create a parameter for this dimension. For example, here we're going to call it horizontal position. And this one, call it vertical position. So if we want our symbol to place in the center, these two numbers should be 5 inch. But we can also use numbers to control this. If we were to dimension this symbol, we learned that this is actually 5/16 in width and somewhere around 5/16 in height as well. Yeah, something like that. So we can actually create a number to control that. I'm going to create a new parameter. Let's call this horizontal offset. Make it a number. And another one called vertical offset. number. So this one will be our positive and negative number to control the actual offset. The relationship will be horizontal position equals 5" plus standard size of the symbol 5/16" times horizontal offset, and the vertical position similarly equals to 5" plus 5/16 times vertical offset. That way, when this is 0, 0, our symbol will show up in the center. And we can give it positive and negative numbers to control whether it moves to the left, to the right, or to the right, and vertical numbers will control the vertical dimension change. And more importantly, a one number offset will always be a standard size of this symbol. So that one is moving one standard symbol size to the left. Change this to default 0. Once we made this, we're gonna do the same to the other masking symbol that we also attached to that family. And then we can replace this one with our updated symbol. So I'm gonna remove this first. I'm gonna add the mask. And I'm gonna add this newly updated group. Realign all these parameters. And align this as well. Horizontal offset to a new parameter. Vertical offset, the same. And the same parameter for the masking. Now in this generic model family, we also have the ability to move the symbol away, just like that. Actually, I think I should rotate this. Yeah. So when we do this, and then we upload this to our sample project, we will see that in this kind of scenario, we could say make this a one standard horizontal offset and move to the side. Now this two symbol looking correct on the floor plan where the 3D element remains the same. Or I can also change this one to -1. It has the same kind of idea. For this one, in the one on top, we give it a vertical offset. So that moves on top. And now in floor plan, we could add tags to say that this is two same family on top of each other. Instead of previously only showing one symbol, now in our floor plan we have two. And if we change this, even though the symbol moves, the 3D element doesn't change. And we have a correct representation of the number of devices or families actually placed in the 3D element. Thank you. Hi. So now that we have our generic model family with the symbol on the floor plan, and here's the 3D element, we can offset the symbol positive or negative without moving the 3D element here. So next step, we're going to talk about the offset parameter. So you know that most free-floating model families has this offset parameter, allows you to control like how high they are with relative to the level. So I can move it 1 feet, 2 feet, or 3. However, there's one thing about it is that this offset parameter cannot be showed in the schedule. So if I were to create a schedule, go to generic models, and you see that in the list there is no offset parameter, and also it doesn't show up as a shared parameter, so that I cannot add it there. Well, let's create a different way to offset our 3D element and make it appear in schedules. So I go Edit Family, and in here, see, because I have this 3D element load in as a nested family, I get a offset in here, and I can create a parameter for this one. Let's just call that offset instance. Notice here I have the ability to select a shared parameter. If I have a file and make it a shared parameter, I can make it so that it appears in schedules. So for demonstration purpose, we're going to keep it as a family parameter. Offset instance, parameter, and go OK. Go OK. So now if you see, I can go here and change this, say 1, 2, 3. I can move it this way. Now if I load this back into the project, I can see that I have now two ways of adjusting the height. I can go change the offset, or I can go here and change the offset instance parameter we just created. It will do the same thing to the parameter to the family, but then these parameters we can make it a shared parameter so that it appears in schedules, allow us to have better controls over the specific height of different family element. Thank you. So now that we have our family with another parameter to control the height, there is one last problem. So you see now we have it visible here on the floor plan. And if I give it a higher offset, say 6 feet, it disappears from the floor plan and is still visible here in the elevation. Of course, we know that is because the view range. So if I go here and change the view range to have a top of 8, then it pops up. Well, doing that may have several impacts because once we increase the view range, we are essentially affecting the whole level. There could be other things that we don't want to see, and there's something that might just show up that impact the other element in our floor plan. On the other hand, what we could do is do a plan region. Essentially, that is changing the view range of this specific area. So if I do here and make that like 8, it will be something like this. So this will pop up because now it's get cut by this custom view range over here. But then if I move it around, it get disappeared again. The other way also could be like maybe we just add a reflected ceiling plan. Well, we can see that there's really not that much things. There's only this element that is of interest. All the other things shows up in the floor plan. And maybe we want to coordinate this with our other element in the floor plan, but now because that is too high, we cannot see it. So the question is, can we raise our family but still have it visible on this particular floor plan? Well, there's one way to do that. We're gonna go here, and this is how we're gonna do it. Edit family. In the elevation, if we change the offset to something like that, what we can do is in here create a model line. Let's align it to somewhere like here. And then align the end of the line to our reference level. Put it in the center. Now we have this one will be assigned to this family. Let's make that an invisible line so that it doesn't show up when we print it. You see now if I change the offset, the line will move accordingly. The length of that line, that is. But then, because it is an invisible line, it remains hidden when we print it. But still, we would like to assign a parameter to the visibility of this line. Let's call it ground protection. Instance parameter. And let's test this in the project. In order to do that, we're going to first save this family into a different name so that we have both versions available. Let's do that. 1.0 and then let's load this into the project. Okay, I'm gonna create another one, and this is 1.0. We're gonna change this to our newly loaded family with the invisible line. So immediately you see it pops up here. And the same way we can control the height, move it around. Now we have both of them visible on floor plan. If I change this 1.0 version to say 7 feet, it disappears from the floor plan. But this one, if I change it to 7, you see it still remains visible on the floor plan. Because of that invisible line, if I select it, you can see it there. That line is getting cut by the view range and therefore visible on floor plan, and we can see that symbol. Now if I uncheck the ground projection, you see it disappears. So I have the ability to control whether this family is visible on the host level or not, even though it is physically beyond the cut of that view range. Well, while we have that, if I uncheck the visible of ground projection, so it disappears from the floor plan, but I can still select it when I hover over it. You see the highlight of that outline of that family, because that line is still, even though it's not visible, it still exists over there, so I can select it. That way it creates a little bit problem. For example, if I move it over here and have it up in the ceiling, I was trying to select all the furniture here, and I grab it like this. I thought I select all the furnitures, but what actually is I also select that family, even though it is in the ceiling and I was not intending to selecting it. It's a little bit confusing and distracting to have it being able to select, even though there is frankly nothing in there. So we can fix that by doing something else. I'm gonna delete this line, bring it back down, and I'm going to create another family, a nested family of generic model. So basically, I'm creating a nested invisible line. Previously, we put that into that family, and now we're going to create it over here. It's the same process of creating a line in the elevation, line it to the top and bottom. We'll create a parameter for this height so that we can associate with our offset instance. We're going to call this one line height. Make that 5. And we're going to create another one. This one is the one we're going to associate offset instance. We're going to relate these two by saying that line height equals offset instance plus 1 inch, so that even the offset instance equals 0, we still can create that line. Now you see there's a change on that. We could use 5 just to be able to see it. And let's change this to invisible line. There we go. We're ready now here. And we're going to load this into our family. And let's place it somewhere here. Go to floor plan. Here I see it. Align it to the center. And yes, here it is. Align that to the center. And now what we can do is, there's this invisible line. Associate the offset instance equals our offset instance in this generic model. Now that these two parameters attached, we could control the height of our Lego person and that invisible line at the same time. And we're going to assign the visibility of that line of this nested family to the ground projection as we did before. Okay, now back to the project. We're going to rename this one to 2.0. So we have the 1.0 where it is invisible always on the floor plan. We have the 2.0 where I can toggle it to make it visible on the floor plan. But when we uncheck this, I can still select it. And now let's see our newly added one. Load it in. Let's put it over here. Okay. So now they are side by side. And as you can see, we can have it visible on the ground floor plan. But when I uncheck this visible, the invisible line disappears and I no longer can select it. Even though I can select the 2.0 version, this one is completely invisible and unselectable. If I turn it on, it will show up in the floor plan, and now I can select it. Apparently, this one offers us with the most flexibility, and it will be the best version of these 3 different options. we have the ability to control whether it's visible on floor plan or not. So now if we look back to all of our works, we can see that we've gone a long way. The first, we create a symbol. We scale it down so that we can create lines that are too short. We talk about masking a symbol by nesting it to the generic annotation family. We talk about creating a text label and rotate it to accommodate different orientations. We talk about load that generic annotation into a generic model, control the visibilities by change whether it is visible on cross, medium, or whether the 3D element it is visible on floor plan and ceiling plan. We talk about offset that symbol to the family. There's a positive and negative offset. We talked about creating a parameter to control the vertical offset so that it can be added into a shared parameter and visible in schedule. We talk about adding that invisible line so that it's always visible on the host level, and we eventually nested that invisible line to the family so that you cannot select it when it is invisible. All of this add to the effective symbolism and increase our ability to create good Revit families and symbols. Thank you.